But I think we're up to a good point. So yeah, I guess just to kind of kick things off, thank you first of all for everybody who is attending. Really appreciate everyone putting aside their lunch times or work time to come and join us for this webinar we put on today, and a big thank you to all of our panelists, who I will let Nellie introduce shortly, for again putting aside their valuable time to provide us with some really interesting insights into strategies, technologies, or different methodologies we can use in this crazy market that we're currently working in, this ridiculously candidate short market. So this webinar is going to focus around building a winning candidate attraction strategy. My name is Josh Symons. If you don't know me, I'm head of customer success here at Hinterview. I'm joined by my colleague Nellie, who is our head of marketing. And the reason we wanted to put this webinar on was really in response to a lot of the feedback we've seen from the market in the last 3 months, a lot of requests from our clients, a lot of the insights that we've been gaining and hearing from different people, and hopefully bring a lot of those different ideas into a single place and let our attendees really get some insights into how experts in the market are tackling this right now, whether they're on the RecTech side, the recruitment side, the L&D side, really bring together some of those different strategies. So in terms of an agenda today, as I kind of already said, hosted by myself and Nellie, we have our panelists here that I will let Nellie introduce shortly, so you'll be hearing from them. But we're going to be running this very much in a kind of Q&A style. So rather than kind of presentations, this is going to be responses to questions that have come in ahead of this webinar being launched today. And at the end of this conversation, we'll be looking to tackle any live questions that come in during the process. So a quick introduction from myself. I'll try and keep it to under a couple of minutes, not to bore the life out of everyone, and really let you get into the meaty bits on the experts. Quick introduction from themselves, who they are, their backgrounds, what they do, the panel discussion, and at the end, depending upon any live questions that come through, we'll do our best to get through any of those live questions. If we can't tackle all of them, myself, Nellie, and potentially some of the panelists will come back to you after the fact with answers to those queries over the kind of rest of this week. But hopefully we can get through anything that comes in. So utilize the live chat function, put it up publicly, direct message myself or Nellie if you want to. And if you want to ask a particular panelist, make sure you reference their name into that as well. So we mentioned briefly why we put this presentation on. And actually, let me just come back to the kind of home screen. We'll get back into that. So why we put this presentation on, why we're looking about winning candidates in the current market. And as I was doing a little bit of research in this to back up my own assumption, and I think it's quite correct that we are in a very candidate short market, there was a couple of stats that came to my attention that really stood out to me. There was a report last week from the British Chamber of Commerce where they interviewed just shy of 6,000 companies across the UK, and over 70% of them reported in Q3 that they struggled to hire. So whether it's small businesses, large businesses, we're not alone in this. Whether you're recruiting for your own business, whether you're recruiting on behalf of a client, 70% of over 6,000 businesses interviewed struggled to hire. Now, if you couple that with a report that came out from the ONS for the September employment reports that's done across the UK, for the first time in history, there were over 1 million live vacancies across the UK. And this is just through the ONS. And this is a record-breaking event. Never in history of the UK have we had over 1 million live vacancies. And 1 million actually represents a 23% increase on the previous record. So let's not kind of shy away from it. We are in one of the craziest markets we've ever seen. It is coupled with being post-pandemic. It's coupled with Brexit, if you're based in the UK or across Europe. And it's coupled with the fact that we're coming out of this now and trying to see, how do we tackle this new world? How do we work the right jobs? How do we address the right candidates? And how do we change our focus from winning business or working with our stakeholders to working with candidates, and make that a central part of the way that we focus our efforts and the way that we work? So we wanted to bring together a number of experts across different areas to be able to tackle some of those questions head on, talk about the strategies that they're taking, talk about technology you could be using, some of the things as managers, recruiters, business owners that you can be doing to thrive within this current market. And hopefully the insight shared will give you guys some really good ideas on that. So without further ado, let me hand over to Nellie. She'll make the introductions. As I said at the end of this, if you have questions, please pop them into the chat. But otherwise, I'll hand you over to Nellie and our panelists.
Wonderful. Thanks, Josh. I think those stats really do speak for themselves and really kind of set the scene for today's discussion. So yeah, it brings me great pleasure to be able to introduce our panelists. So I'm just going to go around and invite each of our panelists just to say a little bit about them and kind of their take on the current market and what we can be doing to tackle it. So in no particular order, just whoever's in my screen. Lisa Jones, would you like to introduce yourself? I think you're on mute, Lisa.
Yeah, I was. That's another automation that we need to think about. So Lisa from Barclay Jones, we focus on recruiters, marketers and IT leaders, generating more speed and pipeline through training, tech and automations. Really looking forward to the session today, because I think now's the time recruiters need to get super assertive, really crack on with aiming high and solving some significant problems in their business. I would say, I don't think there's a talent shortage. I think there's an interested and engaged talent shortage, but I'll just leave that out there in the ether and then go back on mute.
Thank you, Lisa. Certainly asking the tough questions up front. That's what we like to see. Who's up next? So Neville, would you like to go next?
Hi. Sorry, I've been coughing while you guys know. I'm Neville James. I'm the sales director at CloudCall. And I think I actually agree with Lisa on the engagement side and actually being able to be more creative in how we go about things. We're a software company that specializes in just smart ways of people communicating. We want people to collaborate with each other. We want to make sure that organizations and the different communities that are working together actually have innovative ways of using technology. Because we all speak to people, we're talking now. We've got to make sure that those conversations that had get put into a way where data can be used to actually make sure that we benefit candidates. We work across a lot of CRMs, and what we're finding is that we have that same issue. People are saying, how can we make sure we build lasting relationships and make sure we keep the candidates engaged? As Lisa mentioned, it's that engaged issue. We're recruiting at the moment, so I'm in a double-edged thing where we're working as a software company and working as a communications company, and we're at the side where we're trying to do exactly the same thing as well. So from my point of view, any insight you guys can give me will help me in the interviews I'm doing in about 2 hours time. So thank you very much. Okay.
Thanks, Neville. Great to be able to get out as well as contribute in a webinar. That's fantastic. Thanks, Neville. So handing over now to Adam. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, thanks, Nellie. So I'm Adam. I'm the Chief Revenue Officer and one of the co-founders of Sourcebreaker. Sourcebreaker is an AI-driven search and match platform that helps recruiters identify additional candidates across their CRM, CV databases, and LinkedIn. So there's not a talent shortage if you're using Sourcebreaker. There's the plug. And then match those candidates directly to end-user jobs, giving you more business development opportunities to place each of the candidates that you find. I think the key thing for me in this market is two things: are you engaging with the right candidates for the right jobs, and two is what is the actual quality of the job that people are working for, because I think if you've got a high quality job, you'll always be able to engage candidates with it. Awesome, thanks, Adam. Another great insight and plenty of food for thought there for everyone. Who have we got left? So Rossa, would you like to introduce yourself?
Certainly, thanks, Nellie. Yeah, I actually agree with everybody so far, Lisa, Adam, and Neville. There isn't a shortage of candidates. There's a shortage of there's a lack of skills in being able to engage with candidates. There's plenty of tools out there. There's plenty of candidates out there, but what's not out there is the ability to engage with them, either from my point of view, from recruiter level or from a talent acquisition level in-house. Bit about us: we're a generalist agency with specialist divisions, and where I'm primarily concerned with is recruiting for the big tech companies that have their European headquarters here in Dublin. So it's quite a competitive market anyway, only more so with the current conditions.
Thanks, Rossa. And last but certainly not least, Ross.
So yes, I'm Ross, and I am the founder and CEO of Talent Crunch. So we're a specific recruitment business designed for tech startups and scale-ups. And again, I'm going to agree with everyone on this call that it is all about engaging candidates, and we work really closely with our clients with either an embedded model or a specific retained model, where we will be looking at how do we actually engage with talent, particularly with tech startups and scale-ups. They need amazing talent. It makes a huge difference to their business. So every hire is integral. So we work really closely with our clients, and later on I'll give you some ideas of how we do that to ensure that we can actually snare great talent that is out there, but is getting contacted daily, 10 times a day. So yeah, it's all about kind of making businesses stand out.
Great. Thank you, Ross. And actually, while you're in the spotlight, let's kick off straight into the questions, shall we? And Ross, I'd love to come to you first and kind of pick up what you were just saying just now about, engagement, and that the candidates are out there, but they're just being bombarded. I wonder if you could tell us a little bit about, in your experience, what advice you give at improving talent attraction and engagement.
Yeah, so for me, it's about really working with your clients. And if you can, as I say, our model is slightly different, but it's about trying to get as upstream with your clients as possible to be able to build things. You can use Hinterview. Obviously, it's a great product to be able to build videos, to be able to take things to market, and actually work really closely to understand how and what your clients need and how you need to stand out, and particularly not just what your clients need, but what the audience you're trying to attract need. So looking at the candidates that you're trying to attract, what is going to interest them, what is going to kind of pique their interest to actually apply to that role. And it's not just going to be the salary, it's going to be about actually the opportunity and what they could potentially get out of a move. Most of the people we're trying to attract, for probably everyone on this call, are likely to be in a role. They're likely to potentially even be happy in a role. So you're trying to take people out of a role and put them into another business. And if it's not a particularly well-known company, then how are you going to sell that company? How are you going to get the story and the messaging right to take to market?
Yeah, absolutely. And Ross, I wonder if I could invite you in now, and just to touch on what Ross was saying, is there any kind of advice that you can give in your experience of what recruiters can be doing to stand out in such a competitive marketplace?
Absolutely. It's a little bit confusing, Ross and Rossa, but we'll get there. Can I share a screen with you, actually, if that would be okay?
Yeah, of course.
Because I fully agree with what Ross has said there. Give me 1 second now. And from this, when we're working with clients, we adopt a similar model where we can, Ross. We are like a contingent agency, but more and more in this market, it's retained or exclusive. And the problem is that a lot of the time, it's trying to educate companies. I don't know if you can see my screen, as to what the market looks like from a candidate's point of view, right? So I often use this slide with them and I say, guys, this is what your tech company, the pre-IPO, great, the great series round of investment, you've got plenty of money, you've got a great product, you've got free beer on a Friday, you've got everything else, and that's you in there as well, right? Because that's what the candidate's seeing on the market out there, and you really need to go and have a unique message. So what Ross was saying is getting upstream, and there's a question back for Ross. How often is it that you have to educate your clients that their message that they're actually going to use to deliver is only going to make them look like everybody else? And how often do you have to say, right, genuinely, what is it unique about this role, first of all? Because we're trying to attack candidates. We're not trying to attack people to a company. We're trying to attack candidates for an actual position. So how often is it about, what is it about this role? What's the USP about this role that's going to cut through all that noise out there and resonate with you? Because everybody in the tech sector is getting, I would say, Ross is being polite, it could be 30 or 40 times a day with some of them, especially if they speak a language. And you need to make sure that your message is going to cut through to them. A case in point that I worked with a company, they had a policy of automatically promoting candidates or AEs, account executives, if they hit their target 3 quarters in a row. And that was unique to that company. And that's what I led with. And a Dutch account executive came back to me and he said, the only reason I came back to you, and this is pre-video, Josh, sorry, this is pre-video. Everyone comes back to me now because of videos, but this is pre-video. And the message was that I was very interested in promotional prospects, and that was actually believable. All the other messages I ignored, so it's to educate the companies that, that's Waldo's not actually in that picture, by the way, or Wally, depending on your neck of the woods. He's busy being successful, or she's busy being successful in their job, and you really need to work hard to turn their heads. So it's about trying to do that with your clients.
Yeah, absolutely. And I wonder if you've got anything to add to that, Ross. I know Rossa invited you to comment.
Yes. So most of the time when we're going to market, the client has got things that everybody else is saying. So like you said, free beer on a Friday, or autonomy, or it's a really cool business to work as part of. And one of the things that we do, we're very lucky, we've got a specialist who's an employer brand specialist within our business. We'll run a workshop to uncover some of the things, but actually it's not something where you necessarily, good recruiters out there, you should be able to kind of uncover some of these things with your client, really spend some time actually depicting what is it that actually makes this company stand out. Some of the things that Rossa was mentioning there, some of the things that make the role stand out. How are we actually going to take this to market? And if you can position yourself in a retained model, then you can obviously represent that brand. It's a far more effective model. Or if you can become an embedded business within that client, then obviously you can then represent their brand, take them to market, and you are essentially kind of their internal talent team. All of those things will help greatly and are being sort of taken up a lot more by clients now because the market is so tight for talent.
Yeah, absolutely. And I wonder whether, Adam, I could invite you to kind of comment now, because we're talking a lot about roles and the quality of the role. And I wonder, in your experience, what you could say about kind of thinking about the quality of the role and how that might affect candidate attraction.
Yeah, well, I think when everyone's talking about this, I think one of the things, this market's so mental. And I was chatting to somebody the other day, and they were like, we've got 120 live roles. And I was starting to think, okay, well, what are those roles that are actually going to attract the very best talent, and which are the roles that you've just taken on? So what I think, really recruiters should be taking this opportunity to do is to look at their actual book of business and say, who are the customers that we do want to partner with, people that will give us, the best terms, not just in terms of a percentage fee, but actually, is it retained? Is it exclusive? Can we really represent that brand and just focus on that quality of a role? I think it's then also looking at the quality of the business that you're working with. So what's the level of funding that they've got? Where are they going? I think especially the latest generation coming into the workplace right now, they're so eager and career driven to progress rapidly. We have it the same in Sourcebreaker. Even from 6 years ago when we launched to now, people want faster career progression in those 6 years. So I think it's looking for those hyper growth businesses, because they're the only ones that can actually give the generation that we've got coming into the workforce now those opportunities.
Actually, Adam, I couldn't agree with that more. Some of the experience we've had, certainly speaking with clients, is that qualifying out of jobs, I think, is so important. Being able to have the strength to kind of say no in certain situations, to interview your clients to see if this is something that you can fill or something that you're actually proud to bring to market, because the candidate base will remember this. And if what they see is you are consistently working with well thought out, well qualified, well brought to market roles, rather than say bringing out a list of 20 or 30 jobs you might be working on, the kind of understanding of how you position yourself as a recruiter and that candidates will want to work with you, I think, becomes so much stronger. So if you can really help qualify, then your message to market becomes so much stronger.
Yeah, I think the other thing that people need to look at is what is the recruitment process at that business. So, if you're working on a role and they want 6-stage interviews all face-to-face in somebody's office, then actually, to me, that quality of role is a lot lower than somebody who will move really quickly. They might use video for the first 2, and you might just need to come in for a final culture check face-to-face. But they'll actually give the time slots available for that up front. And especially one of the things that we do is Steve and I, the two co-founders, we give our time to interviews come ahead of everything else. So if we see a candidate at first round today, we would make sure that we can actually take them in entirety through the process by close of play on Thursday. So a 3-day recruitment process, because otherwise you're just going to lose the very best talent. So I'd look at, it's all of those things that add up. What is the model you're working with the client on? Retained, embedded, exclusive? What is the actual company benefits? What are the role benefits? But how are they actually going to take you through that interview process as well?
Yeah, that's such a good point. And I can see Lisa nodding away there, not to put you on the spot, but anything to jump in from you, Lisa?
I do think that we've got an opportunity as a result of what's happened in the last couple of years to just rethink the process of it and do it the way that it should have been done all along, which is making it very clear what the recruitment process is from the very outset, what the dates and times are. I slightly disagree with Adam as well regarding, but in a good way, regarding people wanting progression. I think what we probably need to do as a society is say that progression isn't just about being promoted. It can be about, and it is about training, and it is about learning cultures, and it is about becoming excellent in your niche. And we know lots of recruiters have been promoted outside their sphere of excellence into management, that actually if they'd have been left just to bill, they would be absolutely amazing. So I think that there's a few points that if we had more time, I'd really explore. But I do think recruiters need to become more consultative. They need to get back in the driving seat. They need to really educate recruitment, their clients as to what a great process looks like and how technology can add some significant turbo when they're the ones saying to me right now they're out of capacity, that even if they did have the candidates, they'd be a bit screwed. So for me, it's about saying, right, look at the process. What can you remove that you no longer need to do? How can you improve speed and pipeline? How can you educate your recruiters to find the best candidates rather than just expect them to apply? What can you do with your job adverts to make it absolutely clear? It's not, a candidate's not looking for a new job, they're looking for a new opportunity. There is sometimes a very big difference. And what does that opportunity give them from a life chances perspective, as well as potentially the word manager in the job title in 6 months? So that's why I was nodding away. Tech.
Yeah, all good things to think about, and I'm glad you raised tech, because I think that's obviously something that's you know, all part of the conversation. I wonder if, Neville, I could invite you to kind of talk a little bit about your experience and how tech kind of help or hinder kind of those long-lasting relationships with candidates.
I think tech, more than anything else, when you look at it, it's really easy to say that we've got a load of tech, so it all should work. And actually, tech is an absolute irrelevance if you don't use it properly. It's a complete waste of time, and it's a complete hindrance. What we try to do is to say to recruiters, from our point of view, is say, right, what is the tech going to do for you? It's going to do a couple of things. It's going to save you time, which means you're going to be able to place more candidates. It's going to make you money because you have placed more candidates. So that's all it's going to do. It's very simple from that point of view. What we've kind of found is that people have a load of tech, but actually they forget the one thing they should be doing, communicating. It's really interesting hearing everybody talk about candidates, because I'm in that throw of doing it myself. It's talking to candidates. It's making sure that communication piece exists so that you're not taking it for granted. I think Adam and also Ross, you mentioned it. It's more about saying, right, if you've got a candidate, have you spoken to them? How often have you spoken to them? What are you doing with them? Have you made sure that the right job spec they've got in front of them? When they call you, is there a call pop-up as an example, so you can see who's calling you, when the last time you spoke to them? Are you marrying up all of that data? That's what tech should do. You should marry up all of that data so that the calls, what you've logged, whether or not any of your consultants have got any good reporting, or you're using dashboards to see who's good. Because you can have somebody who is placing, and somebody over here who's doing nothing. And you're thinking, why? They're both good, they're both doing this. But the tech part of it, which I think is important, but is the people part, the people intervention is the most important, is right. Is there a real-time dashboard where I can see what's going on? Is there a supervisor panel? Is there call reporting so I can just see here, find out what's going on to actually help and guide this person to be better? So when you get the candidate coming through A, you at B is not putting a buffer up in front of them immediately because you haven't got the right information, because you're not talking to them in their language in the way they want to hear. Something you mentioned, Lisa, about disagreeing with Adam in terms of promotion. You know, you're absolutely right. People, they come and they do a job for a fixed period of time. They say, right, I need to be promoted. And sometimes they're promoting them to the next level of incompetence, which is a very old phrase. But actually, reality is it's making sure that when they see that role, it's a fantastic role that they want to do. It marries up. You're using the tech part of it to marry up the right people with the right qualifications and getting to them quickly. And also managing the expectations. I love the idea that you can talk to somebody, if they have 3 hitting targets in a row, they may be promoted, or their expectation is based around what they're going into. And that's what we say to recruiters. Your frontline part is to make sure you do everything right, is that you use what you have on your desk or in front of you in the correct way, and don't just assume it's going to happen. So all of those things like calling people, queuing to callbacks, all of those sort of stuff, make sure you're using what you've got in front of you, because a lot of people just don't, you know. And there's that old-fashioned thing here. This actually helps quite a bit, you know. It's quite nice. And if that's linked to your CRM, happy days. So it's fine.
Is that a landline, Neville?
Yes, it's a landline, and there's a mobile, and there's one there with an extension on it. I've got everything here. I'm old-fashioned.
Lisa, your own worst enemy. I could see you nodding again there. I wonder if you wanted to chip in terms of you know, tech and keeping candidates engaged throughout.
Yeah. So it's what you do with it that counts, and we could play bingo with all the crap analogies in my head and metaphors. The one thing I have seen in the last 18 months is we're now more reliant on tech than ever, but we still haven't quite bridged the gap between how the humans use it and what it's there for. And I'm never going to be happy, obviously, because I'm a tiger mum, but I still remember, this is going to sound a bit crazy, but realizing what Teams was all about when I stopped turning it off because it was getting in my way every time I turned my laptop on. And this was like February 2020, right? And then all of a sudden I realized that Teams is going to make a big difference. But still, I'm coming across recruiters who don't know how to use MS Teams or Zoom properly, and they're running their day through it. That's a basic bit of kit. A phone is a basic bit of kit. God help those said recruiters who are not using their CRMs, phone systems, sources systems more effectively, but still saying, not got enough candidates. Do you know what I'll do? I'll go and buy a LinkedIn recruiter license so I can get some more, or I'll download a load more data, or I'll advertise more jobs so I can get more candidates. And meanwhile, we're running a webinar on how to attract more candidates. And most of us are going, haven't you got enough? Haven't you got enough? What are you doing with the ones that you've got? And candidates going, why is it I need to apply for every flipping job going? I thought recruitment consultants had great systems that enabled them to find me and keep me engaged. Recruitment clients are actually saying, and I'm paying you quite a lot of money for your database and access to it. And meanwhile, recruitment consultants are going, yeah, but we dare not admit that our data is a little bit of a mess and we've not really got any automations that are going to help us free ourselves up so we can really get on the phone. And I know that sounds really harsh, but that's what I'm seeing every day. And I think we've got an opportunity to really nail that down. But the coolest tool in all of this is the recruitment consultant. And I'm not sure that we've learned quickly enough over the last 18 months that if we engage them correctly and we get them using their systems and generating more speed and pipeline through their systems, that then that candidate attraction problem will naturally just go away, because they'll have a lovely little, you know, nest of baby birds saying, feed me.
Yeah, do you know, sorry to jump in, I absolutely agree with you. I'm not going to agree with you, because there's so much that a consultant has in front of them, and then they look that way and think I need, and then that in their CRM, in their database, in what they're doing on a day-to-day, why isn't it working? If you've got all these people, why isn't the right match going out to the right candidate, so that when you speak to the candidate, you've got enough data there, you've used your CRM to say, this is the role, I've spoken to you because I know we have talked about this before, I believe this is accurate for this, this, and this reason, rather than just firing out a random act of violence that you hope is going to stick. And that's what it is. It's being that specific. And you're absolutely right. The most important thing, even though I'm a software tech person who want everybody to use the tech, it's not. It's the consultant. If that consultant can use what is in front of them, right in front of them, properly, and slow down, stop looking outwards and actually slow down and say, actually, what have I got here? What am I using here that actually works? You know, Lisa, that's 100%, that absolutely works. And that's what we should do.
You know, we always talk about ready, aim, fire, don't we? But I think a lot of the time in recruitment, I'm seeing too much ready, fire, aim. And it's just like, let's just get a load of stuff out there and hopefully we'll hit something. And of course you can talk about, you know, throw enough crap at the wall and enough of it will stick. But this isn't me criticizing the recruiters that I work with. This is me saying there has been for too long now, us just hoarding, buying. I've bought you it. Why can't you just use it? And then in the next breath, I've bought you all this stuff. Why do you need it? Why can't you just pick up the phone? And often the data and the systems that the recruiters have not been trained on are phone prevention devices. because they're just not geared up to show them who they need to speak to, but more importantly, to tell them what they need to talk about. And for me, automation is the main thing that's come out of the last 18 months. It's we've got to cut some slack for these guys and gals, because if they are going to remain the coolest tool, and we aren't going to completely roboticize the recruitment industry, by the way, I don't think that ever will happen, then we at least need to get the coolest tools engaging with the stuff that's been bought for them in a way that really frees them up, so that candidate attraction isn't a problem. It's just my passion.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Lisa. I can see we have got one question in the chat from James. So I'm just going to ping this out, and then if anyone feels like they passionately like to take it up, please do. So thanks for your question, James. As a recruiter, given it is a candidate short market, what ideas do you have to get around any conflicts of interest with your clients, i.e. representing same hot candidate to say 2 clients both offer? In a tight market, how do you mitigate that and ensure positive client experience? Did I see a hand go up there? Yes, Rossa, over to you.
Yeah, I have some ideas on this, because we do still work a contingency model here. First of all, I'd be very honest with my clients when I'm first dealing with them, that unless they have me retained, then they don't own any candidates in the process. That's my job. But then I suppose what I would do is push it back on the clients. Again, Lisa had said, and Neville has said as well, we can have all the technology in the world, but if we're not selling, then forget about it. And if we want to outsource everything that we should be doing, and when I say selling, I mean getting people what they need, not persuading them to buy what they don't need. If we're not fundamentally doing that, then we're not doing our job as recruiters. Recruiters have a tendency sometimes, maybe if they're not trained well enough, to try and outsource it to technology, when what we should be doing is using technology to help us sell, to help us do our job. Now, what I would say to 2 clients, if I had a candidate that they both wanted to hire, I'd push it back on them and say, guys, I've done my job, I've got them engaged with you. It's now your turn to sell to them. So I would use maybe some technology with that, where they can either engage with the candidate they want, or what I prefer to do in a lot of situations is actually interview a client about why their opportunity is great, and then present both of those to the candidate. And then it's the candidate's choice, because that's what it should be ultimately. So if one client isn't prepared to go that extra mile and sell directly to a candidate, then they may lose out on that candidate. And they can't just be relying on the candidate either looking up why they're a great place to work, or being rely on just a recruiter telling them. It's a client's problem as well. We're both in it together. So that's how I'd operate there.
Yeah, great response. I can see other nods. Would anyone else like to chip in?
I think the only thing from me is, Rossa said it at the very first sentence, it's that transparency with the client. I think as long as everybody knows exactly what is going on, and there's nothing being hidden from one client and not from the other, I think that makes the biggest difference.
Yeah, absolutely. We haven't had any other questions come through, but if you do have any questions, we should have some time at the end. So please do post them. Oh, we just had one more through from Sean. So I'll just read this out, and then if anyone would like to pick it up, please raise your hand. Are you finding that you or your clients are losing out on candidates due to return to the office policies, e.g. requiring people to be in the office rather than fully remote? How are you tackling this? And do you see this changing at all as we start to gain more freedom and move away from the pandemic? Big question. Who would like to jump in?
I would say very quickly, as I said, I'm on the recruitment side at the moment. It's something that's come up which I didn't hear 2 years ago. It would never have been a request or a stipulation that asking me as a potential employer, can I work from home? What are the days? What are these? And it's an expectation. And I think it's changed. It's fundamental change that there has to be a level of flexibility. But that flexibility has to be appropriate to the role. I think we can be very careful that we don't suddenly just say, yes, you can work from home. Yes, you can work from home. Because actually it has to be a measured one, and it has to be appropriate to the role that you're looking at. There are certain roles that can be done. I know with salespeople, you need to have them at least a couple of days, or some point where you have that face-to-face interaction. You have that stimulus of a team environment, even if it's only for a few days a week. So yes, it is something that is a big factor, I think, whether somebody is working remote. and clients or companies who are not allowing people at all to work from remote, they're going to find they're in a difficult position, because they are going to be the Luddites, because the expectation has changed. Rightly or wrongly, the expectations have changed.
Yeah, actually, I should agree with that fully. And I think, from what we've seen from speaking to clients in the market, our own recruitment, we've certainly seen both expectations. I want to be in the office, I want to be from home. But if I was kind of giving some advice on that, if my own kind of viewpoint on that is, be prepared to have a good answer to that question. Why does that require me to work from home? Why does that require me to be in the office? So in line with the kind of consultative nature of this job specking, job taking we've spoken about so far, ask your clients or ask yourself as a business, if I'm answering a candidate's question of, do I need to be in the office? And your answer is yes, no, or partially, do you have a good rationale behind that? If the answer is yes, why is that? Because I don't think that because that's the way it's done is valid anymore. Is there a good reason why this is required to be office-based? Is it because of the nature of the work, the collaboration, the growth, because you're a new starter? And if we're looking for more flexibility, if we don't have a fixed office space, what was the rationale of the business behind that? And all that will contribute to being able to answer that question. The idea of because we don't do that, I think, is dead. You now need to actually dig into the why and the reasons behind that decision. And that would certainly be my advice.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I feel like we could talk about this topic for another full hour. It is the reality that candidates' expectations have changed. Would any of the other panelists like to speak to their experience on that?
The only thing I would say is I think businesses need to look at what culture they're trying to build and then work their policies around that rather than around candidates. So think about, what do you want the next 6 months to look like? What do you want the next 2 years to look like? Because we're in a bit of a flux period right now. But if you want to build, a collaborative culture that has, a lot of sales heavy, type of operations within it, the chances are it's going to be a lot more office based than it is going to be remote. And if that's the direction you want your business to grow at in the next 2 years, then potentially you will lose out on candidates right now. But think about that long-term strategy and don't bend that for certain people.
Yeah, absolutely. Go on, Lisa.
Sorry to interject. I just think, again, it's that we've been saying this for years, like we've got a lot of Bullhorn clients, and initially when Bullhorn came into the market and you could get it on your mobile phone, there was a lot of recruiters wanting to restrict access. And we were saying all along, but you're restricting access to people that really want to work outside office hours. Why would you even do that? And I get why, by the way. I'm a big girl. I've seen some really horrible things happen with data. But I think now more than ever, it's again looking at your systems, looking at your leaders, looking at how they manage their staff and how they lead their staff through data, because we buy through data now, so we should be leading through data as well. And looking at those systems and saying, how are the systems that I've got helping me manage my business, my data, my brand, my staff performance? And then saying to yourself, if genuinely someone was working from home and you didn't know what they were doing because you didn't have transparent processes, really core, clear training and management and performance stats that told you a story about how effective that member of staff is doing, then that's not just a pandemic or a working from home issue. That's just an issue within your business. That for me is a pre-pandemic issue, not just I want to work from home now. I've got to fix those problems anyway, even if you've got everyone in the office.
Absolutely. Thanks, Lisa. We've had a couple more questions through. We have got 5 minutes, so we'll try and run through them before we wrap up. One question on tech. So being in a world where we are more and more tech driven, how can we optimize creating a streamlined approach towards recruiting rather than having multiple stages? Does anyone like to jump in on that one?
I suppose
when you're saying,
you go.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, I think it's making sure that the tech talks to each other is the key, and thinking about it as a tech stack, not that you've just got lots of pieces to the technology. Also, absolutely love a whiteboard session. So literally get a whiteboard or massive piece of paper and draw out every single step of that process. We've done this a few times with loads of different processes internally at Sourcebreaker, and it's quite scary as to how many things actually end up in it. And then what we do is we then rate out of 10 what you think the effectiveness of each step is for what you're trying to achieve. So if it's a candidate engagement that we're talking about today, look at your candidate engagement workflow and every step of it, rate it out of 10. And if it's less than 5, bin it. If it's less than 7, look at why you are still doing it and should you optimize it.
Yeah, definitely.
I would really agree with that. And it's funny you say about the whiteboard, because as much as I'm using tech and as much as we want to use tech, I still, the whole thing, I always have an A3 piece of paper in front of me whenever I'm doodling stuff and think, I must do this, I must do that. But the tech stack you're talking about, nothing works in isolation. And it's really easy it's really easy to forget that they have to. There's no point in having a telephone system that doesn't link to your database or your CRM. If you're dealing with that level of people, you're dealing with loads of people, you have to have some level of integration. If you have it as a standalone, you're not utilizing the not just the candidates you've got coming in, but actually the consultants. They're not doing it. They're not doing what they should be doing. So that measuring stuff from the 10 to 0, and if it's 7, question, if it's 5, bin it. I love it. I'm going to use that because I think that's a really good way of looking at it. We have so many, as an example, as a company, we have so many different features. And I hear my guys talking about, well, there's this feature, there's screen pop-ups, there's inbound pop-up, IVR, call logs, portals, all of this sort of stuff we have. And I always say to the guys, so what difference does that make? Tell me, but more important, tell the people you're selling to what difference that's going to make to their day. How much time is it going to save them? How much level of automation? Lisa, you said earlier about automation. How much automation is that going to bring that will free up that time so you can place more people, so you can make more money and work at home 2 days a week like you want to, or 3 days a week? That's the only part tech should be doing. The rest of it is just noise. If it does anything outside that, it's noise. That's what it should be doing. Saving you time, making you money. That's it.
Absolutely. And that brings me to my final wrap up, which is to go around the panelists and ask for a golden nugget of kind of piece of advice, a takeaway for our attendees today. Neville, was that yours, or would you like an opportunity to redo your golden nugget?
Well, yeah, you've ruined it now.
Sorry, you walked right into it.
That's okay. No, it pretty much is that. If you're going to use technology, what was mentioned before by Adam, I think, Adam, it's not in isolation. It doesn't work in isolation. And Lisa, you said it has to work together. So if you're going to use technology or use people like me or whoever, CloudCall, we talk about, it's got to work together. If it doesn't work together, don't bother. And that's got to be the key thing. Technology should help you make your day easier. If it isn't, don't buy it. Don't have it. Don't integrate it. Don't use it. If it doesn't do anything, bin it. Put it at the 4 or 3, like Adam was talking. It's below 5. But we hope we're above that. So
absolutely. Thanks, Neville. So I'm just going to go around and ask each of our wonderful panelists for that one takeaway before we wrap up. We are pretty much out of time, so let's make it snappy. Lisa, can I come to you first?
The coolest tool in all of this is the recruiter. If they don't know what they should be doing, when they should be doing it, if they're having to do loads of admin, clean up their data, do stuff that's not adding any value, spend far too long sourcing, not actioning the right leads, and also trying to do that working from home, then the leaders of the business need to think about training, culture, all of that stuff, and get the recruiters back in the driving seat and stop just taking jobs and CVs and trying to match them. Recruitment is so much more than that.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree more, Lisa. Adam?
I think mine, just the point from earlier, is look at the quality of the interview process at the clients that you're working in, because I think that's making a big difference with the way that the speed of market is at the moment.
Absolutely. Thanks, Adam. If people need to shoot off, I know we're out of time. Thank you very much for attending, but I will just give our final 2 panelists their opportunity for their takeaway. So Rossa?
Yeah, I think to remember that we're in the people business, both the people looking for jobs and the people trying to hire them. And if we're not talking to them as people ourselves, we're not going to get anywhere, regardless of what tools we're using or we're not.
Awesome. Thank you, Rossa. And Ross?
So yeah, going on what everyone said there, one thing that hasn't been mentioned, if you get an opportunity with the world opening up, meet people, try and get in front of people face to face. We're doing it more and more now, and it's making a huge difference. Obviously, people need to be comfortable with it, but that's one. The other is get close to your clients, much closer. Talk to them about the contracts you've got. Can you get to a retained model, an embedded model where you're actually able to represent them on LinkedIn, even be an extension of their brand, get email addresses. That makes a massive difference because people will trust more that there's a real live role. So there's kind of two things from me.
Absolutely. Thanks so much, Ross. So many golden nuggets of advice and loads of comments from our attendees saying thank you so much for our wonderful panelists. Great insights, loads of takeaways, lots to think about. So fantastic insights from everyone. Thank you so much. I'm just going to pass over to Josh to wrap up with some final thoughts and to close us up for today.
Yeah, just to say once again, yeah, thank you for the panelists. I think it's brilliant to hear this information coming from different kind of parts of the industry, and the insights have been fantastic. One thing that I'm coming away as someone that worked as a recruitment previously and just looking at it now is become consultative, work with your clients to create that message to market, and then utilize the tech you have at hand to optimize your time and to get that message out to market. If you're just going out with a job spec, if you're just going out with a surface level understanding of the roles you're working, you're not going to be successful in attracting candidates. But if you get under the bonnet and then utilize technology, jump on the phone, meet people face to face, optimize your time, that's where the success in winning candidates is going to come from. And certainly that's the advice I'll be taking out to all of my clients as well, is how consultative are you being about the jobs that you're working, and then what's your message to market. So really appreciate that, guys. Thank you very much to everyone. Thank you everyone for attending as well. I know I ran a little bit over, and a recording of this will get sent around to everyone in attendance today and will be available online over the next week or so. And big thanks to Nellie for putting this all together in the first instance. But thank you very much, everyone. Have a good afternoon.
Thank you, everyone.
Lovely.
Have a great day.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks, guys.